It's time to check your money with America's money maven, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Vicki, what's up, baby?
Well, George, we are continuing our conversation this week around what's happening in the banking industry. But before I go into that, first thing, everybody, you need to go and hit that thumbs up and like, share, and subscribe, because we are continuing not only great conversation around what's happening with the national economy, but the things that you need to do to prepare for any changes that may be ahead of us. All right, George, so I'm going to go back and sort of dovetail.
Vicki.
What?
Now, do I have to remind you, my sister,
okay,
what day this is?
Oh, George,
come on, Vicki. What day is it?
Today is the 200th episode anniversary for us, for America's Money Maven being featured on Inspiration for the Nation. 200 episodes. Can you believe it?
All right. This is amazing.
I'm going to get a drum roll or applause.
I'm giving you some applause, baby. I'm giving you some applause.
All right. Thank you so much.
Listen,
I cannot believe that. Okay.
200 episodes, and it's been such a joy to really learn and partner with you over these past few years. And 200 episodes, learned so much. And today is the day I'm gonna learn a little bit more. But congratulations to us.
Yes.
Hit that thumbs up and like and share for the 200 episodes.
Exactly.
Yeah, we should put we should put our Cash App in there too, so just in case y'all want to holler at more. Anyway, go ahead, Vicki. So Vicki,
I want to say this. You can go onto the YouTube channel and go back into any of the information that you would have possibly missed over this 200 episodes, because we're going to reference some of that today. So anyway, George, what I want to do is to go back into our conversation from last week that we started. Mm-hmm. Concerning what happened with Signature Bank and what happened with Silicon Valley Bank, and bring out one particular segment or element within that entire sphere for us to look at more closely, because it directly relates to what we're going to talk about today. So if you recall, we talked about the fact that there was a run on the bank.
Yep.
There was a run on the bank, meaning everybody rushed to the bank and said, "Give me my money." Mm-hmm. There was a run on the bank because there was a concern that the bank liquidity was less than what everyone believed, and they were concerned that if the bank liquidity was less than what everyone believed, that if they didn't take their money out, there would be no money for them to take out. And what I mean by that is the depositors. So the fact that they had bonds, individual bond securities concerning treasury notes, their treasury bonds, treasury notes, that were backing the deposits, but because of rising interest rates, the actual value of those bonds had dropped. It meant that when everyone rushed to the bank and they were forced to sell securities to meet the depositors' needs, it caused insolvency. But there was something that should have happened before all of this started to unwind. And that's called stress testing. Mm-hmm. Now, stress testing for a bank, which right now banks of the size of $250 billion or more are required to do stress testing. In this case, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank didn't meet the requirement that forces them to do stress testing, because we're going to tail back here, George, during the financial crisis, when we came after the financial crisis, which was back in 2007, 2008, there was new legislation after the financial crisis that required everyone to do this. That stress testing requirement was lifted. Mm-hmm. It was lifted for what they call mid-size banks or regional banks back in the Trump administration.
Surprise.
When that I'm not going to go there. I'm just telling you.
I know you're not going to go there. I did.
Okay. It was lifted. And so regional and mid-sized banks were no longer required to do this. If that requirement was still in place, there would have been a red flag that took place, that came up concerning these particular two banks, so that remedial action could have been taken to possibly, no guarantee, to possibly avoid this happening. So what is stress testing? Stress testing is basically running scenarios based on different types of inputs or different situations within the economy to see how, what if something happened, what would be the resulting impact to the bank? So scenario testing, stress testing, to really, in a simple form, as far as the explanation, to see what would happen in the what if categories. And it's not just one what if, it's hundreds of different what ifs. In fact, in financial planning, we do this all the time. It's through a simulation model, when we look at individuals' finances to see if something happened. What if, for example, what if you had to retire early? What would the impact be to your finances? Same thing that's happening here. So stress testing did not take place. Bottom line, when the stress testing did not take place, then some of the red flags that would have been there were not seen. And so the remedial actions necessary to avoid this type of degrading of the bond positions and the liquidity was not picked up. So what does that tell us as far as our individual finances, though, George? What do you think that tells us?
That tells us that we better think about doing some stress testing.
There you go. Okay. All right, then. I'm saying to everyone, this is the time, and we've done this before. If you go back and look at many of the past segments, I've mentioned this over and over and over again. Look at what your liquidity positions are. Look at what would happen what would happen if I lost my job? Am I in a position where I have enough liquidity behind me to weather a storm? This is the time for everyone to do some stress testing of their own households. You're about to say to me, George, right?
I was going to say, as I'm listening to you, there's a rule of thumb, right, about how much mortgage payments you should have in the bank and how much, your gas and lights you should have. Was it 9 months or 6 months?
Okay, now, in what I call normal circumstances, where we have the normal type of economic activity, I usually say 6 months. But we may be entering a point of what I would call not as normal as past, because we have been in a position for the last year that the Federal Reserve has been fighting inflation. So we've got two things going on here, okay, as far as our liquidity issues and trying to fight inflation. With what's happened, particularly this week, because we had another raise in interest rates, another quarter point. The Federal Reserve is rock solid in their commitment to fight inflation, knowing that what their number one objective is to make sure that we can slow down the economy. If we slow down the economy to fight inflation, more and more we are starting to see that economic activity is slowing down. That's a good thing as far as inflation is concerned. But when economic activity slows down, it means that the possibility of recession increases. And that is why I'm saying that this may not be the normal circumstance of a 6-month liquidity. It might be advantageous. In fact, I'm saying not might. It is advantageous for you at this point in time to start looking at how would I handle my basic financial needs, my basic expenses over a 9-month period.
9 months, okay.
Stress test your own finances right now and run a scenario like this. Tomorrow, my employer is going to call me and say, I love you, but we can no longer afford you. I'm sorry, but this is your 2-week notice.
And that's real, right? Because look at what Facebook, Google, they're all doing it.
They're doing it. Okay. So run a scenario right now and say, what would I do? How would I pay do I have the resources to float myself for another 9 months on your basic expenses.
And that would be, Vicki, irrespective of any potential severance or anything like that. This is your own, without any of that.
Your own cash, your own liquidity. Because we don't know what the severance package may look like.
Right.
We don't know if it's only going to be for a short period of time or a furlough where you're working part-time. So do the stress test. Look at your particular situation and say, how would I handle? What would happen to me and my family if we needed to actually use our own cash to float our basic expenses, lights, gas, food, your insurances,
your car payments.
Your car payments. What would happen if that happened for 9 months? How would I handle it? And if you don't have the 9-month liquidity position in place, get ready. This is the time to tighten your belts, get leaner, really pay attention to your bottom line, and get more nimble. We need to do this. And here's the thing I've said over and over, George. If the recession doesn't come and you've put away 9 months of liquidity, are you hurt? No. Okay. No. Okay. Because we wanted you to save anyway. Okay. But you've been talking for years about increasing our cash position. Increasing your cash. But right now, because of the pending, and I'm not guaranteeing there's going to be a recession. They didn't call me and tell me this, but we can see how economic activity is starting to slow down.
And you've talked about that too. All right. So Vicki, you mentioned that the Feds raised interest rates this week. And we've also heard you say on this program that it's done to curb inflation, right?
Yes.
And so my basic question is, explain to people why the Fed is making it harder for you to get a mortgage, or making that auto loan rate go up just a little bit, or that credit card rate go up just a little bit, meaning that it may be a little bit harder for you to get credit. You're going to get it, but it's going to cost you more. Why would the Fed want to do that?
The number one, well, the Federal Reserve has basically two mandates: full employment and to curb inflation. They set a target of 2% inflation some time ago as being their target that they are always aiming for. Why do they want to do this? If we have runaway pricing that has no end in sight,
meaning cost of goods and services going up,
cost of goods keep going up and up and up.
Salaries are not keeping pace with that. Yes.
Okay. If that happens, then our ability to keep up with pricing will at some point in time choke off the economy in total. So they have to stop and look at how can we bring pricing back into control. They don't want to necessarily, I don't know how, well, I'm going to say it. People are going to know how old I am. When Ford was president, remember that, George?
I do remember that.
Okay, when Ford was president, and
one-term president,
price, what they call price fixing, where you couldn't charge more than a certain amount. We don't want to get back into those, 18, 19% interest rates that we were living through during that time frame. So the process is basically this: if we raise interest rates, the ability to receive credit decreases. When the ability to receive credit as far as buying a home, not because we're saying you can't have it, but the ability to qualify for it, to carry the carrying cost decreases. So fewer people are buying homes. I'm going to use this only as an example. If fewer people are buying homes, then the construction industry itself will no longer have a robust construction industry, and supplies from construction will not be bought, and manufacturing, et cetera, and then from there, fewer people are actually going out and shopping because they have less money. If fewer people are going out and there are fewer people going out shopping, the goods that are on the shelf will not get sold. The only way that the merchant is going to incent you to buy is to lower the price, because there are fewer people out shopping. As they start to lower the pricing of goods and services, inflation drops. And it's a cycle that we're always working through as far as trying to keep an equilibrium between the price of goods and services versus the amount of cash that's in the system. When we have a lot of cash in the system, we just keep spending. Price keeps going up, and up. Okay. You were about to ask me something, George, before I go.
I was thinking at the same time, then the Feds at some point they then begin to lower rates to
stimulate
the economy. So
okay, to stimulate. As I said, it's always a seesaw. Okay?
Yes, you're right. Especially during COVID, right? Because we were really not spending because there wasn't hardly the supply chain.
We weren't spending because we weren't, right, supply chain issues and so forth. But there was a lot of cash in the system.
Yeah,
and so that cash actually started to chase fewer goods and services because nothing could be manufactured
right
during that time period, and so pricing started to increase. So what I'm really hoping that everyone hears, though, is this: the possibility of inflation is, the possibility of a recession is increasing. Vicki is not saying it's going to happen for sure, but the statistics are starting to lean in that direction. You need to run scenarios on your own household finances. What would happen if my job ended tomorrow? What would happen if, both of us, if there's two incomes in the household, we didn't have income coming in? How can we create a tighter, leaner budget? I'm just going to stop using budget, expenses.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at what your expenses are and see where you can trim. For example, if you got 12 streaming services, do you really need 12? Okay.
Right.
Okay. If you're going out to eat and spending, $15,000, $20,000 a year on outside eating,
how much a year?
$15,000 or $20,000, or $10,000 or $15,000. Okay.
Right.
Because let's learn to cook. Okay,
yeah, Vicki, let's learn to cook. No, I'm playing with you.
All right. Okay. All right. Practice. What if in a real solid strategic way, not just rolling it around in your brain, actually walk through to see what would happen. Okay, George, this has been a very robust conversation. Thank you again congratulations on the 200th episode, for doing all that you've done for America's Money Maven over this last 200 episodes. Everyone who has any questions, feel free to give us a call at 315-930-4499. Like, subscribe, and share. And we'll say at this point, George, our plate is definitely full.
All right. That's Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and the registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. She is America's Money Maven, 200 episodes strong.